Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sidereal Insights Astro update for, November 30th already, 2020. Can you believe it? We are almost at the tail end of an unprecedented and, dare I say, atrocious year. I am going to take just one moment and get all of my windows all configured. I want to thank everyone for joining me. If you're joining me live, whether you're joining from Facebook or from YouTube, if you would pop into the comments and let me know that you can see me and hear me okay. And let me know where you're joining from too. I would love to hold up, check on the health of the streams. It looks like we're all set on YouTube. We're all set on Facebook, broadcasting, of course, to the Mystick, Physick, Astrology Facebook page for the Sidereal Insights Astro Update broadcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Kind of an exciting time to be alive, I dare say, astrologically. We're going through some interesting shifts in the world just due to the different configurations we've had line up this year. And I think we've all experienced some unprecedented world events, and hopefully we're kind of moving through some of that and getting a feel for what life looks like going forward. Thanks for joining me. I see we've got some folks watching on Facebook. So welcome to Sidereal Insights. What we do is every 2 weeks on Monday, we take a look at the current planetary transits across the heavens from a Western sidereal perspective. And so we're taking a look at the transits from the point of view of how we can kind of anticipate what's coming, consciously use the energy of the transits to affect our lives in a positive way. And so I want to thank you for watching. I want to invite you to like and share the broadcast, tag a friend if you know someone who might be interested in what we're going to be talking about today. I'm Phaedra. I'm the astrologer and artist of Mystick, Physick, Astrology. And what we are going to be talking about today, we're going to kind of recap current transit activity. We're going to talk a little bit about the full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus that's happening today. And we're going to talk about some upcoming transits specifically related to Venus, because we do have this full moon lunar eclipse taking place. Venus is the ruler, and there's a lot of astrological activity coming up in the first weeks of December centered around Venus. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. But first, let's kind of recap where we're at for now. So we have just had a few transitions take place over the last couple of days. We had Mercury move into Scorpio. We've had Neptune station direct at long last. So a few final shifts. We have Venus about to change signs coming up here in a little over, I think, like a week and a half or so. And so we're going to be experiencing some of these transitions. But right now, as it stands, the only planet we have retrograde at this moment in time is Uranus. Now, normally around this time of year, we're talking about planning ahead and the early weeks/months of the coming year where we might have a window of opportunity to make great headway with initiations when all the planets are in direct motion at once. Now, this year, a little bit differently. It is kind of early to have a conversation about what's going on in January unless you take a step back and view it through the lens of we're planning ahead. We're making a plan for what we want to accomplish next year. In that case, it's not too early to be talking about that because we want to be doing our planning now. We want to be doing our assessing and our planning now, and that includes knowing what's coming up at the beginning of January. We're going to be in this place where we have all planets in direct motion for just this brief window of time after Uranus stations direct in early January, and then Mercury will retrograde. I know we just came through that. Let's not talk about it so soon. But we will have Mercury stationing retrograde in late January. And so by mid-January, we're going to have entered his shadow. That's a time when you don't want to be talking about or thinking about or planning for major initiations. You want to be wrapping things up or getting ready to go back and review work that you've already done, right? So we're just going to have this brief 1 week period. Then Mercury's going to retrograde, delaying our ability to get a really good head of steam early next year until late February, the 21st of February, Mercury will station direct. And then once that happens, we have this window between late February and late April, where we have just over about a month and a half when all the planets will be in direct motion. So if you have major initiations that you would like to roll out or get started on in 2021. Maybe tentatively plan that window. There's a couple good new moons in that window between February 21st and I believe April 27th, when Pluto stations retrograde, that you may be able to take advantage of. So this is really kind of the time to be thinking ahead to that window and getting a feel for what is it that I want to get accomplished this year? What is my main thing that I want to get done? And kind of get your strategy in place so that when that window of opportunity arrives, you can take advantage of it. Okay, so just kind of circling back to where we're at now. Like I was saying, we did just have Mercury do his retrograde shenanigans. He, in fact, just stationed direct on the 3rd of November. And now Neptune has stationed direct. And so that's kind of clearing the air a little bit from this point on. It's maybe hopefully eliminating some of the lack of clarity, some of the fog around the correct or best path forward for some of us. But like I said, he's going to enter that shadow again by the 14th of January. So Mercury is really going to be kind of a gremlin as we come through these winter months, just due to the timing of the planetary stations. But once he goes direct in late February, we're going to have a new moon in Aquarius and a new moon in Sidereal Pisces to jump on in March and April. So be thinking ahead to those. We do have Jupiter having just moved back into Capricorn recently as well. So he joins Saturn there, and now they're positioning themselves for the upcoming conjunction on December 21st at the solstice. And so that will be significant for folks as well. It's a good sign and house to have a look at in your chart, your Capricorn sign, at right around 5 or 6 degrees. Take a look at where that lands. If it aspects anything of importance with a major aspect, that may be a date that you'll want to keep your eye on. And we finally did have Mars station direct as well this month. So it's been kind of an interesting month for shifting of energies as we go through these stations back into direct motion. It allows us to kind of ramp up a little bit and make some headway. While Mars is still here, which is only for a little bit longer, this is a time for rest and retreat, for recuperation, for rejuvenation, for relaxation. So don't be planning on being super busy with activity coming through December. Wait and set those plans for the coming new year. But this will be a good window of opportunity for finishing up solo projects or solo activities, anything that you've been working on kind of behind the scenes. Use these last 4 weeks of Mars in Pisces to kind of put the finishing touches on any of that while you are having that little burst of energy in your private life. Okay. And then, yes, we did just come through on the 12th, our final Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. And so this has triggered really some unprecedented change and transformation for all of us in ways that we're going to have fun kind of adjusting to as we move forward. Things that have affected foundation and have affected status. That's really how we've felt a lot of the Jupiter-Pluto repeated hits as we've come through this year. Venus is in Libra, currently in her rulership, just in time for this. I keep looking at the charts right here on my desk. The lunar eclipse in Taurus, right where we kind of want her to be, right? Now, she has just come through an opposition with Uranus, and that throws a measure of unpredictability, but also a little bit of spontaneity behind this lunar eclipse as well. And of course, lunar eclipses can be a little bit unpredictable anyway. They are much more powerful than a standard new or full moon, so keep that in mind. Have an antenna up for that bit of unpredictability. You may have already experienced it because now at this point we're past the perfection of that opposition between Venus and Uranus. But what I want to call out there is really for the first part of December, this is a time to be focusing on cooperation, having fun one-on-one as we move through the early part of December. Though I do have a few things I kind of want to call out. Venus will be making some really nice aspects through these early weeks of December, which we should all take some time to slow down and enjoy. But there are a few caveats that I want to throw out. as we move through that time frame once she makes her move into Scorpio, which is where the sun is now. The sun moved into Scorpio on the 17th. He's going to be there till about mid-December. Before he moves into Sagittarius. This is really, now that Mercury is here in Scorpio as well, the perfect time, as I was saying earlier in the broadcast, to be making your plans for the coming year. This is a good time for strategic thinking, for analysis, and for making a nice solid plan for the future, for how you want to approach the coming year. Our lives have changed for most of us. Our industries, our businesses, our professions, our livelihoods have felt change. As we move into 2021, we're at a position such that we've experienced what much of this change feels like. And so we're in a better position to understand what we need to do to adapt to it, what new practices or new strategies we need to adopt to help ourselves mitigate coming out the other end of it. Some of what the damage has been, some of what the repercussions and effects have been, and try to reposition ourselves in a little bit more solid way now that we understand what some of 2020's major transits and aspects have been about. And so what I would encourage you to do at this point in the year, be looking ahead to 2021 and formulate not only a solid plan to allow you to move forward, but maybe more than one plan. Plan for a worst case scenario, plan for a best case scenario, because we still are in a position of flux, a situation of flux. We've been coming out of the Gemini Sagittarius eclipse series now. We're fully into the Taurus Scorpio eclipse series. So we are experiencing these transitions. And because of what we've lived through, just kind of in general and as a society, but also individually in 2020, I would encourage you to have more than one idea for a path forward moving into 2021, just to give yourself a little bit of flexibility and to just accommodate room for things to change so that you're not caught off guard if something does change, especially hopefully for the better, right? That's really what I think what we're all angling for, is that 2021 will bring changes for the better. Okay. So yes, we're in the middle of a pandemic, make a plan anyway. And like I said, make a plan A and a plan B just in case. Now Jupiter will be in Capricorn until early April next year. April 2021. We're done with his retrograde, so he's going to be in Capricorn for the remainder of his transit until he moves on. Okay, so this is a window of time where we can experience transformation and metamorphosis as relates to the Capricorn house that Jupiter is transiting. Just keep in mind Jupiter's in fall in Capricorn, so he's not really showing us his strongest qualities while he's there. So just be wary of that. It can still be a little bit frustrating time. Mercury in Scorpio, I was saying this until December 17th, about the time that the sun moves on to Sagittarius. Excellent time for strategic thinking. It's also potentially a good time to be considering financial negotiations, debt settlement, dealing with estate planning or wills, because your mind will be primed for that sort of work, that sort of activity. Now watch the days around today, this being our lunar eclipse, with Neptune having stationed direct yesterday and approaching his square to the lunar nodes. His stationing at the time of the eclipse, if you'll recall back earlier in the year when we had our first set of eclipses when he went retrograde, he stationed right around the time that we were having an eclipse cycle, an eclipse season. With Neptune stationing at a time of eclipses, that can have a profound impact on the outcome of the eclipse itself. And so what I want to call out is that eclipses bring generally profound permanent change that's beyond our ability to control. With Neptune stationing, Neptune's retrogrades tend to be about the revealing of secrets, lies, deception. They bring potentially disappointment or disillusionment. It's when we can be caught out with the truth if we've been dishonest or disingenuous in some way. So watch for that potential because eclipses reveal information that's been hidden from you. That emphasis on the revealing of secrets, of deception, of duplicity, this is doubly energized now. And what it can indicate is that if Neptune were to reveal something to you, even if the eclipse itself doesn't bring a major permanent change, whatever is being affected in your life can, even if the eclipse doesn't bring an ending or a beginning, whatever's affected in your life can undergo a permanent change, a permanent alteration due to whatever Neptune reveals. Okay. So this lunar eclipse in Taurus takes place, of course, today, November 30th. This is kind of an inauguration of a season of big changes. Partly it's our last eclipse season of 2020, so it's the final shift for 2020, occurring fully in the Taurus-Scorpio pair of signs. So Venus, of course, is ruling from her position in Libra. But with that opposition to Uranus, this is a destabilizing full moon. It's a destabilizing eclipse, and it can bring upheaval, potentially in the form of a sudden change of heart. Now, that could involve a money matter, it could involve a relationship or partnership matter, it can involve a business matter. Okay, and that sudden change of heart, which if you are being affected by this eclipse, you may have already experienced, and you may already know what that is now that the eclipse is here. Whatever that sudden shift is, may also trigger a change in the status to the relationship, to the partnership, to the business arrangement, or the financial dealing, whatever it is. This is what we're being asked to deal with right now. This is what we're being asked to work with and accommodate into our lives as a result of the eclipse. But what I want to call out is that odds are, as we move forward from this changed position, from this new place, whatever these changes are, we can successfully rebuild and from a much stronger foundation. And as we do that, as we move forward and rebuild from a stronger foundation, part of what we need to be doing, part of what we're being asked to do at this lunar eclipse is to follow our desires, to get really clear, to dig really deep and get really clear about what really matters, what our values truly are, what's really important, what our priorities are, whether or not they've changed, and to pursue that, to take action towards that. Okay. Now, around the whole conversation of eclipses, I do have a video. I'll add a link to the video description once I get off the broadcast, for where we take a look in depth at the late 2020 eclipse season, November 30th and December 14th eclipses, the critical dates and degrees you need to know, not only now in these current weeks and months, but also looking forward into 2021. I'll post a link to that video so that you can watch it. That'll give you a little more in-depth examination. And then you may also want to have a look at the 3 eclipse essentials you need to know, just to give you some refresher information on how to navigate eclipses in general, what they can do, how they can influence us, how they can impact us, and some advice on what to do and kind of what not to do during eclipse season. Okay. And then also yesterday evening, we had our guided releasing practice specifically for the lunar eclipse in Taurus. So if you missed that, it's not too late to do your releasing practice for the full moon. Now, coming up, what we have is a lot of Venus activity. And this is a bit what I wanted to talk about today. And it's a little bit part of the reason why I'm late getting started with the broadcast. We had some technical difficulties, but also I kind of wanted to arm you with some advice around the Venus transits that we're experiencing in early December. So this is particularly notable for anyone who has Taurus sun or rising, of course, because you have an eclipse happening in your sun sign or your rising sign. But it's also going to be notable for folks who have Libra sun or rising, in part because Venus also rules your sign, but she's transiting there at least for the next little while. And generally speaking, these are fairly pleasant and nice looking aspects on the surface of things that Venus will be engaging in as she moves through the early part of December. She's going to be contacting Neptune. She'll be making contact with that lineup of Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto right on the cusp of Sidereal, Sagittarius, and Capricorn. And generally, we should enjoy these aspects, because Venus is generally very pleasant and enjoyable. She's about harmony. She's about communication and cooperation. And we're in the holiday season, right? And so I would encourage you take some time to enjoy Venus's effects. But I would warn you that what calls it out to me is at the end of the month, the very final aspect Venus is going to make before we wrap up December, before we wrap up the year, is a closing square to Neptune. And or at least a square to Neptune. Actually, let me take a look and see if it's a closing square to Neptune. But this square to Neptune signifies disappointment. And we're right at this full moon involving Venus's ruling sign of Taurus. And so I want to call out this risk of disappointment and just say, keep your eye on it, enjoy these transits, but have an antenna up for things that can trigger disappointment. There are lovely aspects on the 5th and 6th when Venus trines Neptune, but that can put us in a position where we may tend to idealize the partner or idealize the other or idealize money or valuables or things of beauty. Okay, we might idealize appearances. Shortly after that, she's going to begin engaging with Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn. And as she does that, this near the 10th is a really wonderful time to be taking creative action. And I would encourage you to do that. That all takes place right before she moves into Scorpio. Now, Venus in Scorpio is not really strongly positioned. She's in her detriment there. And so while Venus is in Scorpio, this is where things can get a little sticky and a little tricky and maybe be part of what sets us up for disappointment towards the end of the month. On the 11th, she makes her move into Scorpio. While she's here, don't be engaging in manipulative behavior. We can find it easy to become manipulative with partners or in relationships, with lovers, with long-term committed partners. Don't be tempted to engage in that kind of behavior. Don't manipulate people for profit or manipulate people in pursuit of what you want. Those things can tend to come back and bite you in the butt later on. And a Venus square Neptune transit at the end of the month would be the perfect time for that to happen. So just be aware of your own behavior and be watchful and vigilant of the potential for this kind of behavior in other people so that you don't be a victim of it, right? Now, near mid-month, as we're moving into the new moon solar eclipse in Scorpio, Venus is coming up sextile to Jupiter and to Saturn. And what this says to me is that this is a time when we really can be enjoying our experiences, be careful, potentially wary, but at least careful of receiving what are seemingly valuable gifts that may have hidden motivations behind them, or gifts that appear generous but serve to limit or bind in some way. And what comes to mind here when I mention this is like joint gifts. Oh, this is for us, or oh, this is for the both of you, or oh, this is for your birthday and for Christmas at the same time, right? Be wary of gifts that only appear generous but really aren't. That may have some other motivation going on behind them. Maybe that motivation is to manipulate or to trigger or create or cause a particular outcome that are targeted in. So just be aware of that. Now looking ahead on the 21st, beyond that, we have, of course, our great conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn also taking place on the solstice. And a few days after that, we'll have Mars moving into Aries, the sign of the newborn. That's kind of re-energizing the zodiacal year when that happens, even though Mars takes a little bit longer than that to make a complete circuit. It's going to be very energizing for folks who have a sun in Aries. But we'll talk about all that and more coming up on Monday, December 14th, the day of that eclipse at 1:30 p.m. on the Mystick Physick Astrology Facebook page and on the YouTube channel. I want to thank you all for joining me live. I'm just going to double check and see if we had any questions or comments on this broadcast. Thanks everyone for joining me. If you know anyone who might get benefit out of what we talked about here today, feel free to share this video with them, tag them in the comments if you like. I want to thank you for following and invite you to follow us on Facebook at Mystick Physick Astrology, and on YouTube. The channel is Mystick Physick Astrology as well. You can subscribe and click on the notification bell, and that way you don't ever miss a broadcast. And stay tuned. I keep saying this. It keeps being real. Stay tuned for more information coming up very soon on the 2021 Ultimate Astrological Planner that's being readied for release. And thank you so much. I want to wish all of you, hopefully, a happy Thanksgiving holiday. Danielle, you're very, very welcome. Thank you for joining me. If you have questions, throw them at me on the feed here, or also even in the Facebook group. And we'll see you all again next time, probably in, gosh, I think almost a couple of weeks, since we're right at that point where the lunation and the Sidereal Insights broadcast kind of line up right on top of each other. I think Monday the 14th is probably going to be, well, a big weekend, Sunday and Monday, again, just as we were today. Thanks everyone for joining me, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.